Well, here we are. It's Sunday, and that means another heart-to-heart. This part of my message, I really wasn't counting on sharing. I shared a little part of it, oh my goodness, 2 years ago now. But I really wasn't sure if I was going to go into detail and share it all over again. But there's been a lot of new people that come into my life here on YouTube since I shared this part. Take some coffee or grab a snack and have a seat, because I'm going to tell with you a very intimate part of my life. While we were going through all of the stress of having all these properties and they wouldn't sell, and right at the time when the housing market crashed in '07, I became very sick, but it was a different kind of illness. It was an illness that I kept from everyone. Before I go on with the details, I want you to know that it could be a little bit graphic. And so if some things bother you, I don't want you to continue this part of the video. I'm going to share with you just lightly as to what happened to me. Because a lot of people have been asking, well, Tessie, would you share with what happened? I started hemorrhaging. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but I was bleeding. And it was bad. I didn't tell my husband because we were going through so much and we didn't have health insurance. So I kept it to myself. I kept it to myself for a couple days, and it got worse and worse and worse. By the time I shared with him, one glimpse, he said, we have to go to the ER. It was the third day, and I knew something was terribly wrong. To make a very long story short, I had tumors in my uterus, and what happened was the tumors got so large that they actually started hemorrhaging, and it was pulling on the uterus and ripping it. By the time I reached the hospital, I was in a very dire situation. I lost a lot of blood. I still had pride because, you understand, I didn't want to sell everything. My husband said to me different times, why don't we sell things? I had pride. It's so hard for you to understand and believe it now, but I did. That's how I was. I was afraid what people would say if they saw that we sold our new house that we had and sold our new vehicles that we had. I didn't want people to know that I was living this way. I would say, what are people going to think? They know my family. I grew up in a family that was quite wealthy in those terms. I didn't lack for anything. Now, my mother was not a spender, but yet we lived a very comfortable life, and we were considered wealthy in our area where we lived. I had pride. I look back on it now and I laugh because it's like I'm a totally different person. So while I was in the hospital and they were doing all kinds of tests on me, I went to go to the bathroom and my husband went with me. Now what I'm about to share, some of you may scoff and say, oh Tessie, you're so dramatic. To me it was very dramatic and traumatic. While I was going into the bathroom, I collapsed. I blacked out. I woke up to hear my husband say, nurse, nurse, can you help me? Can you help me? They lowered me onto the floor, and the floor was cold, but I was so hot inside. I laid there, and it took me a little bit to comprehend what was happening. But I learned enough to know that this situation I was in. And I asked my Lord, Lord, if you can spare me my life, I will forever change and be a different person. I cried out to God within my soul. I didn't speak it audibly, but I knew from that minute on, I was going to be a new person, a different person. No longer going to allow pride to take over my life. I was given blood transfusion. I was made stronger. I was on strong steroids to heal me enough that I could have an operation. So I had 6 weeks. We came home. And I remember distinctly when we laid in bed one night, I said to my husband, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it together. Those words will never leave me because they are as strong emotionally to me today as they were back in 2007. Yes, I'm being dramatic, but this is my life and this is really what happened. From that day forward, we set in motion a change in our life. We called realtors. We sold everything for pennies on the dollar. We didn't make money on those houses because we put so much money into them, but we sold them. We sold the trucks. We sold the four-wheelers. We sold everything that we could sell. And then when we were done selling everything, we looked at our life and said, what can we cut out? We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have cable. We didn't have things that we thought we should have. We did all of these things because we had a mindset that we got ourselves into this, we're going to get ourselves out. Yes, we can blame the economy. We can blame our lifestyle. Yes, we were making good money and we were living in a nice way. We weren't going extravagant on vacations. We weren't buying jewelry and I wasn't buying expensive clothing. We were just living good. We were living happy. But we were living on borrowed time and borrowed money. We would sell one house and that money that we made, we put into another. And put into another. And put into another. And we got carried away. We ended up buying a couple properties at one time. And these are lessons that we learned. So yes, when I do find little things at the thrift store, I have a joy in my heart. Yes, when I do have a gift from someone here on YouTube that made me something, I have a joy in my heart. Because I know I could not have been here. I realized that my pride almost destroyed my life. I believe the Lord allowed these things to happen to me to teach me a valuable lesson. Would I have put down my pride? I don't know. But these things happened and it actually saved my life. These tumors didn't happen overnight. They took over 10 years to grow, the doctor told me. Why? Of all the times in the world I could have this trouble, why was it over the exact same time that I was living with such pride? Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens. We can be bitter or we can use them as life lessons. I decided I wanted to homestead after meeting a person on Freecycle. She was giving away some things and it formed a friendship that I will never forget. As I drove to her property the first time, she had windmills, all kinds of things. She lived totally off the grid. She showed me a world that I never knew about and a world that I started to research and enjoy. It doesn't happen overnight, my friends. It's a gradual step on the ladder of success. Sometimes you have to have some failures. Did you know that even Albert Einstein had some failures in his early life? Thomas and Edison, they had failures. Everyone in life has failures before they have great triumph. I have great triumph in my life because I know where I've come from and I know where I'm going. Where am I going, you say? I'm going just to share my life and just to live abundantly, not with worldly treasures that will tarnish and fade away, but with treasures of the heart, with treasures of all of you sharing your life with me. And I realize I'm not alone. So many of you have the same type stories. Tiny house prepper, somebody that has a large channel that doesn't live too far from me, had their own story like mine. Our stories may be similar, but our lessons are the same if we choose to make them that way. So the chapter in my book keeps going and going. And yes, someday I will write a book when the time is right. So I can't wait to share with you all of the things that I've done here on the homestead. When we came here, this place was not livable. It was not livable. It was only cash sale. They couldn't sell it any other way other than if you had cash. We took every little bit of cash we had left and we bought this place. And we put a little bit of carpet and new paint, a new roof over our heads. But that was after living here for quite some time with a leaking roof. We lived with leaking roofs. We lived with cold. Our house was cold. We would see the frost on the inside of the windows some of the first years we were here. I lived with nothing. I know what it's like for Paul in the Bible when he says, I lived with plenty and I lived with nothing, but through it all, contentment is what I have. I've been there. I've done it. And I'm ready to share it. Take care, everyone. See you next time.